Welcome back to my channel, Melanated Gods of Earth, brothers and sisters, royal family. I'm your host, MODISE The High King. Now, in today's video, kinfolk, I want to continue having conversations about the situation in Congo because it affects all of us, and it's a revelation of things that unfold repeatedly, time after time, because our resources are the key component to modern day civilization. And if it seems as though I'm speaking about it way too much, I apologize in advance. But the reality is that without these things, we can't move forward. We must think with it in royal consciousness and apply to that the royal standard. Defend our resources as if it's the most important thing to a modern civilization. And if we were to develop ourselves accordingly, royal family, we need to think on that level. The same level the Euro-Western powers continue to apply to our resources, thinking of them as their bottom line, as their interests, as their private resources. African leaders have been saying in recent days that the West must stop thinking about Africa's resources as if they belong to them, because they belong to us. They belong to us. And on today's video, I want to have a conversation about things that have happened in the past that influenced the West to do what they did and continue to do to this day, keeping a grip on Africa's resources so that they can stay afloat and manufacture technologies and weapons that they use to wage war on the rest of us and the rest of the world. And they use to oppress us and then sell us back overpriced products. Enough is enough. In the past, and if you haven't subscribed already and enjoy the vibe, consider smashing the thumbs up, the subscribe, and the share. Let other like-minded souls know that we're out here. And I appreciate you, royal family, and I appreciate all of you for joining the channel as of late. The army grows. Yes, indeed. Why this powerful Patrice Lumumba speech made him a CIA assassination target? Because they gunned for him, like they did every other African head of state.
Victorious, independent.
Inspirational speeches of African leaders.
Victorious, independent fighters. I salute you in the name of the Congolese government. To you all my friends who fought tirelessly at our sides, I ask you to mark this day, June 30th, 1960, an illustrious date that you will keep indelibly engraved in your hearts. A date of significance of which you'll proudly teach to your children, so that they will make known to their children and grandchildren the glorious history of our struggle for freedom. The Republic of the Congo has been proclaimed, and our country is now in the hands of its own children. Together, my brothers and sisters, we are going to begin a new struggle. A sublime struggle which will lead our country to peace, prosperity, and greatness.
Of course, this was decades ago. Look at the situation today. Unspeakable atrocities are being committed just so the West can maintain an iron grip on the resources to sustain their military-industrial complex and sustain their tech empires. Let's take the brother out. This speech was powerful.
Together, we are going to establish social justice and make sure everyone has just remuneration for his or her labor. We were subjected to contempt, insults, blows that were endured morning, noon, and evening because we are black. Who will we forget that to a black one said to, certainly not to a friend, but because the more honorable was reserved for white alone. We have been seen our land seized in the name of allegedly legal laws, which in fact recognize only the might is right. We have seen that the law was not the same for white as for black.
And that's a direct blow to their military powers. They wield it like it's this thing where they say, because we're America and we have all these weapons and technologies, you should do what we say. That's the reality we're living in today. Military power above all else. That's the only thing that makes the US dollar worth something. Because the dollar is worthless, royal family. The dollar is worthless. It's not backed by any mineral resources, not nothing. The only thing that people respect about the dollar is the US military.
Accommodation for the first, cruel and inhumane for others. We have witnessed atrocious suffering of those condemned for their political opinions or religious beliefs. Exiled in their own country, their fate truly worse than death itself.
And that's the state of Congo today. Millions of people being displaced, bought and paid for, militaries, mercenaries, and I will share a clip on that later on.
We have seen that in the towns there were magnificent houses for the whites and crumbling shanties for the blacks.
That's the world
That
everywhere.
a black was not admitted in cinemas, in the restaurants, nor in European stores. That a black traveled in the holes at the feet of the whites in their luxury cabins. Who will ever forget the massacres? There were so many of our brothers who have perished. The cells into which those who refused to submit to the regime of their oppression and exploitation were thrown in. For this independence of the Congo, even as it is celebrated today with Belgium, with whom we deal as equals, no Congolese worthy of the name will ever be able to forget that this was by fighting that it has been won.
That's the most insane thing to me about all of this. King Leopold of Belgium unalived millions and millions of Africans. He mutilated millions. Then the very next thing that happened was that these peoples assumed that we would just live with them in peace. Like, that's the thing that just boggles my mind about all of this. Is how do they make sense of the atrocities they met up against us? Do they make sense of them at all? Do they just think that these are things that you can just brush over, forget about them, leave them in the past, move on? Horrors upon horrors. Famous Patrice Lumumba's Independence Day speech that dared defy white supremacy.
A day-to-day struggle, an ardent and idealistic struggle. A struggle for which we were spared neither privation nor suffering, and for which we gave our strength and our blood. We were proud of this struggle, of tears, of fire, and of blood, to the depth of our being.
Amandla.
For this was a noble and just struggle, and indispensable to put an end to the humiliating slavery which was imposed upon us by force. This was our fate during the 80 years of colonial regime. Our wounds are too fresh and too painful still for us to drive them in our memories.
And this came right after the slave trade, or during the transatlantic slave trade. So we went from invasion, brutalization, being cast into bondage, and during our time of bondage, we were colonized and resource exploited. That's been the history of the relationship between the African continent and outsiders. If it's not our bodies, it is our resources, our blessings to maintain their civilization, to build their civilization. And then when you want to call them out on it, they want to act like we're crazy. Bam. UN Charter 242. We have the right to an armed struggle against oppressors.
We were subjected to an exhausting work, exacted in exchange for salaries which did not permit us to eat enough to drive away from hunger, or to clothe ourselves, nor to house ourselves decently, to raise our children as people dear to us. Long live the fighters of our national liberation. Long live independence and African unity. Long live the independent and sovereign Congo.
If you like,
Just beautiful. And this was from my TikTok mutual Tunacheki 2 years ago. Smash the thumbs up. Let the algorithm know what's good. And it's an ongoing struggle to this day, fam. To this day. To this day. Royal family. Allow me to share a couple of clips from said TikTok.
So basically, now we estimate there's about 100,000 people here. As you can see over there, there's way more people than there was the other day. And there's no running water, there's no electricity, there's nowhere for anybody to really go toilet, there's not enough food, etc., etc. And more people are coming every day. So this is the situation up here, and this is the literal manifestation of what capitalism looks like, because it hides its deficits, and they're here. This is for a tech industry, remember that.
So this is decades after the speech, after they unalived him because he was too powerful, he was too much of a king, royalty, divine. The messages he was spreading in those days. This is the consequences of what they had to remove, why they had to remove him. So they could do this.
Guys, we need to make more noise about the people of Congo and Sudan and what's actually going on in these countries, because big publications have not talked about what's truly going on in these countries. They are literally all hush-hush, and they want us to just forget and just not pay attention to what's going on over there, because the U.S. government, the British government, the French government, and Israel are responsible for the pain of the the Democratic Republic of Congo and Sudan. These innocent people, look at this elderly woman and children, men, women, babies, running from town to town because the military that these colonizers are funding are literally ripping apart these civilians in these countries, and they have to run from town to town. Every time they hear bomb or any massive unaliving, they run from that town to seek refuge from another town, and they will stay there for a little while, and then the military will follow them and make life hell for them. Young women and older women are being repeatedly raped all the time. It's a dangerous situation in Congo and Sudan right now, and we need to speak up. You guys, myself and other creators are trying our best to bring out the message, but we need to make it louder. We need to share. We need to expose this truth so that big publications can talk about it, so that the world can know what's going on, because right now it's only TikTok that is talking about it, but I don't see it on the news. I don't see articles on what's going on in Congo, and if we do, it's just washed off. Like, you know, the situation is not really out there. So you guys need to speak up, repost, talk about it. And this is such a sad situation. Like, I am so hurt and pained to know that these colonizers are doing the same thing in Africa, in the Middle East, in the Caribbean with the Haitian people and beyond, the Native Americans, the people in Yemen. It just goes on, and it's the same people responsible. So let's continue to fight for the people of Congo and Sudan, and talk about what's really going on with them.
And that's the tragedy of neocolonialism, fam. It's no longer direct and in your face, because now they're using our own people. The most desperate of situations, and they throw fire, or they throw gas, they throw petroleum on that scene. They spark it up.
A few days ago, Times of Israel came out with this article about how Israel quietly awarded gas exploration licenses to big oil companies such as BP. off the coast of Gaza. And now many people are speculating that the genocide that we are seeing of Palestinians in Gaza are directly related to this. A couple days ago, Reuters came out with an article about how the European Union is set to quit buying their gas and oil from Russia as a form of punishment to Russia for the Russia and Ukraine war. So now you have the US, the European Union, Canada, who are opposing Russia and trying to punish Russia by cutting them off from purchase of oil. But they still need oil. So what are these countries going to do? The cost of gas has risen astronomically since the Russia and Ukraine war. And this has ultimately led to a rise in inflation, economic catastrophe in some areas of the world. We have all been impacted. You know, the markets are down, cost of living is high. These Western leaders are trying to figure out what to do here. Do I think that the US, Canada, and the European nations are funding this genocide because of oil? Absolutely. Why? Because I saw them do it in Iraq. I saw them lie and go into war with Iraq because of weapons of mass destruction, and it was really just about oil. 2 years ago, I began an independent project where I focused on voiceless communities. And one thing that I found that was common about all of them was that either they were displaced or they were occupied. And they were always occupied or displaced by a larger group of people, or, you know, a larger country with more power, more money, that could completely displace them because they wanted the resources in which they, in the land in which they were living on. And because they had the money and the power and the backing of the international community, they could be successful. And then people would abandon these small, voiceless communities. And so that's what we're seeing happen in Palestine. That's what we're seeing happen in Kashmir. That's what we see happening in Tibet. That's what we're seeing happen in Congo and Sudan. It's all the same shit. All these governments are literally the same evil. Right now, Gaza is being bombed and rendered inhabitable so that big corporations and big oil companies can come to the land and exploit its resources. And we have to ask ourselves, for what? Is it worth it? It's killing thousands and thousands of people. Who gets the benefit? All this killing is just for money, power, and greed. And we've seen this happen so many times. And when are we going to just have enough? A few days ago, Times of Israel came out with this article.
And that's the neocolonialism, fam. They're waging war on the mineral-rich countries. They want what they want. Whether it's resources, whether it's corporate, whether it's resources or whether it's strategic corporate agendas in terms of giving their corporations more power, more access. It's all the same, fam. It's always the same. And to that I say, for Africa to liberate itself means a decline of life as you know it over there in the West. Life as you know it will go out the window. Because your first world lifestyles came at our expense. And when we refuse to pay that expense any longer, what comes next? Poverty, a slide into third worldification. You're already starting to see the signs on your everyday shelves. You're already starting to see the signs in parts of your countries. People are going to sleep hungry. In Britain, for example, they have to choose between warming up their houses or going to sleep with an empty stomach. I would not wish that on anyone. but you only knew to survive and to sustain yourselves by exploiting other countries and breaking other countries. Mineral rich, the only way to get those minerals was to break us. Why? What happens when we finally liberate ourselves from you? Did you ever plan for that? You never planned for that possibility, did you? As we speak, think tanks across the US are still plotting on how they can get access to Africa's resources, cut China out as a middleman for access to key critical components of the technologies. Now you want to come to Africa and get direct control during a time when we're liberating ourselves from you and your neo-colonialism? It's crazy. For Africa to liberate itself means the decline of life as you. And that's what they don't want to happen, fam. They will do everything in their power to avoid a new dark age. And to add onto that Congo situation, US records reveal CIA deleted Patrice Lumumba because of the DRC's uranium supply. It's always about the uranium. And as we covered in previous video, where they are building a new powerful weapon of mass destruction. All the things you could have all the things you could have done with the knowledge of nuclear energy, and you decide to build weapons. Not energy generation systems. And I've covered that in previous videos, revealing how far we have come in that spectrum of being able to produce energy on a miniaturized level, suited for the modern day era, even in some cases space travel. But no, they want to build weapons of mass destruction.
I came across this very fascinating and interesting interview, and I want you to listen to just a very brief clip of what Executive Director of the Tricontinental Institute for Social Research, he's an author and so forth and scholar, what he says about the Congo's former Prime Minister, Mr. Patrice Lumumba. Watch this.
United States is in the Congo. When the US intervened to overthrow the government of Patrice Lumumba in 1961, principally, and this is important because it's not so well known, principally because the uranium used in the bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki come from the Congo. And when Patrice Lumumba wins the election in the Congo, the United States was afraid that that uranium would then be handed over to the USSR, because Lumumba was a man of the left. So they overthrow the government of Patrice Lumumba to maintain hold of the uranium mines. There's no question about that. That's in the record, in the public record, in fact.
Did you all catch that? Now, to the degree we, some of us learned this in school, which most of us didn't. To the degree we ascertained some knowledge of the great Mr. Patrice Lumumba, whatever information we had, for most of us, was very likely misinformation. He revealed.
On top of that note, it's crazy to me, there's nothing wrong with it, but it is insane, that we were expected to learn about the Holocaust, especially here in South Africa, but we were not taught about the crimes of the Belgians, the British, the Dutch, all across the African continent, the French. We've had our own African Holocaust committed by the European peoples. The US Gov Holocaust our people. They assassinate our leaders, they topple our governments, and they plunge our economies into chaos so they can continue exploiting our mineral resources. Real fam. The story is always the same with them. They want access to our resources and they will do whatever it takes. And as we're going through a new colonial Holocaust right now, where the invisible hand of the colonizers is maneuvering puppets to commit their atrocities so they can keep access to our resources. Lords have mercy when you establish boundaries. They will treat you like the enemy, public enemy number one, and you must be removed at all costs. From the Patrice Lumumbas to the Thomas Nereres to the every last one of them. To this day, they can maintain chaos so that they can continue pillaging and plundering our mineral reserves.
Something that's very interesting, and that is now verified with the records, as he infers in his statement that you just heard. And that is our dear brother, he said, was taken out not only just for his revolutionary acts and so forth that we have heard in the past, but he specifically says in 61 that they came for our brother because of the uranium.
Always about the uranium.
Of course, we know the entire continent of Africa is filled with so many important and valuable energy resources, minerals, and so forth. But he specifically tells us that the threat and the concern that because Patrice Lumumba was a man of the left, as he mentions, the United States needed that uranium to make bombs. The bombs that the United States of America dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
And now they're building a new one.
Isn't that something? Fam, let me tell you something. Some of the information that's coming out and the manner in which it's coming out about the way the powers that be have been operating in such a way to oppress the masses is coming out, beloved, against even their own wishes. And that is because there is an unseen government that's at work in the world that's desiring for righteous people, people of conscience, to stand up, to rise up, and to take their place in the world so that our world is ruled by freedom, justice, equity, divine pleasure, and power. It first starts with the spirit. What do I mean? Scientists nowadays, quantum physicists nowadays admit that everything we see came from everything we can't see.
Everything is energy. Energy fluctuations on a quantum level give rise to cosmic unpredictabilities, some of which manifest into matter as we know it. So even they are reluctant to admit, but they're admitting it nonetheless, that all things are energy. Mind, body, spirit, and therefore everything begins and ends with consciousness. And as consciousness rises, because we're all about black consciousness on this channel, as our black consciousness rises, their power to manipulate declines, because mind over matter. From spirit to spirit, and with spirit we bend matter, and we rule.
But how many of you all know that our ancient mystics and philosophers knew long ago everything you see came from everything you can't see? But it makes some folks feel relieved when science proves what we've always known. That is an important statement, and that's what I'm going to be teaching you about your ancestral powers.
And that's that for today's clip, family. As we rise in our black consciousness, the world around us begins to change. And as we enlighten more and more of our people, and the more we think in unity and resonance, the more power we gain and the more power they lose. That's why they're losing control, whether they want to or not, because they cannot compete with the united black conscious mind, family. They cannot compete. All that awaits them is a dark age. There was a time after the Russia debacle that Germans were cutting down their own forests in order to keep the lights on and keep the house warm. Now that winter is coming, guess what they're doing? Running around the African continent, begging for resources in order to stay warm this coming winter. It is not our responsibility as Africans to supply Europe with resources and keep the lights on, keep your house warm. It is not our responsibility to help you clean up the mess that you have created with your industrial revolution. It is not our responsibility to keep supplying you with resources. So this coming winter, you all have to make a plan. Because we're not coming to save you. We're supposed to starve ourselves, keep ourselves in energy poverty, to supply you with resources? No, Europe. No. You have to make a plan. So keep chopping down your firewood like it's the damn Stone Age. Because it is a new dark age. And I will keep saying it, it is not Africa's responsibility to keep y'all from sliding into it. Because we're doing us now, royal family. We are doing us now. We focus on us. We bless ourselves as we have been blessed, where we have been denied by our oppressors. Since they invaded, they enslaved, they colonized, they brutalized, They condemned us to chaos and hell itself. Also, they can maintain a false heaven. It's our time now. Now we rule. Now we set our own rules, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. We rise in one love, royal family. We rise in one love. As we rise in black consciousness and one love of each other, we recognize our resources, we recognize ourselves. We embrace those who came before us, from Patrice Lumumba's and others, to the present day peoples who are in the struggle. If you enjoy the vibe of the channel, royal family, make sure you hit that subscribe, let the algorithm know what's good with a thumbs up. And speaking of a thumbs up, boom, for you, Sister Vicky. Let the algorithm know what's good, let other like-minded souls know that we're out here with the share, royal fam. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you for joining the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Stay royal. Peace.